I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You have received the minutes of the last meeting. What are your wishes?
Move to approve. Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Hi, Jeff.
Good morning.
And Jeff.
First, the only thing I got on the list is a utility permit to install overhead electric to provide power to a new home at 17885 Grundy Road.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay,
I drove by that home yesterday. I know where you're talking.
Good. It look nice so far. Making progress.
Big improvement, yeah.
Good. I put out snowplow bids. Talked to the guys in the shop, and they said our first next purchase should be a snowplow dump truck. See where those come in at, see when the anticipated delivery date would be. I'm assuming 2 years. But we're just putting out for the truck and frame, and then we'll figure out putting out a bid for the actual dump box and snowplow separate. But that's what we're doing there on my end. With the rain, they're up in Stout hauling rock out of there. Should be getting done there here probably by the end of the week or so. We're figuring we figured up with all the amount of rock that we've had delivered to the roads. On the roads, we're at about 38% complete. So we feel we were about 4 weeks ahead of schedule.
Yeah, because
Okay.
when was that giant rock haul? That was later, so it was the cultivated corn. Last year when that was going on, so it was later in the year.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Yeah. But
So, yeah.
having the rock piles, I mean, I think we got started 2 weeks early. Having the rock piles delivered, hauling out of there has really put us in it.
Yeah, it seems like you're,
Schedule.
yeah.
So. Hopefully we can hang on to that lead and not waste it here this summer, but it was getting pretty dry out there. All in all, going pretty good. Been on Hawk Road and Hawk and 290th. Asphalt's done, just putting on rock shoulders. Pioneer, it sounds like July is when Aspro will come in. They're gonna hit up, they were originally gonna go to Black Hawk do a job and then come back, but it sounds like they're gonna hit another job or two that they're pushing days on, so. Working days that they need to get knocked out before they come back to us. So. Hopefully they'll get back to us soon, but.
That still keeps everything on schedule there, though.
Yep, we did run into an issue with the north bridge, bridge deck is decaying right on the ends where the pavement butts to. So we're having to, work on that, we're putting together a project with Boulder to modify the contract to do more bridge patching and stuff like that with that up there, but it should not slow down paving on that road.
That road's already smoother than it was when it was concrete.
And then
You told people that too.
Yeah.
I heard you.
there is rumors out there that we're not gonna pave it, but we will pave
Two.
it.
So other than that, you're happy with the progress they're making on that
I
road?
think so, yeah. I mean, it's all coming in within, project window, so far so good. Just,
Deal. Any other questions for Jeff this morning?
No.
No. Okay,
None for me.
none from you, okay. I know, gotta get used to that. Have you heard if Erica will be, I know we're still a little early as far as when she's scheduled. So,
I thought she was gonna be here.
okay, we'll move down and go down to the payment of bills and see if Erica does show up, because I'd like to have her here to discuss this. The bills have been sent to you. Are there any questions about any of those? Yeah, it can go all that way.
Yeah.
That's those. And everything else.
I'll move the bills.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the bills. Is there a second?
Second,
Oh, go ahead.
Okay.
Let Jeff have it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the payment of the bills signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Any opposed? Thank you. The Grundy County Treasurer's Report is being passed around, has been passed around. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve?
I'll make such a motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
Good.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Any opposed? Okay. We have the certificate of cost allocation plan. We need to approve that and authorize chairperson to sign the same. Alan, do you want to give us a little bit of an insight as to
I'm
this?
trying to remember that. It's, I think they're looking at the cost of having the Board of Health and their employees kind of as a percentage of our budget. We're just
Okay.
kind of seeing how our dollars are spent.
So move that plan.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second to approve the plan?
second,
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Let's see. I'll give those back to you, Alan. Okay. Erica, are you ready to hit the proposed ordinance with the cemetery commission?
Well, this is
Okay.
just the resolution
Yep.
setting public hearing.
Yep.
Hmm. So. A couple of weeks ago, this board, was provided information about whether to go with a cemetery commission. In regards to pioneer cemeteries, which are basically cemeteries that are not actively being. Plot sold and that kind of thing. It was more the management, lawn maintenance kind of stuff. And I, wrongly believed that the council, or that the board did not have, tax levying authority at all. Once I started, drafting the resolution to basically have townships handle all of that, I reviewed, I knew this better last week, 331, I think 325, and the last sentence in that code section is basically that the board of supervisors can manage cemeteries, but not pioneer cemeteries. And then I found another code section that does allow the board of supervisors to levy. So when we first talked, it seemed that the fact of being able to levy tax so that you can have some money to actually fund the maintenance was a key factor. So I wanted to present the board with this new information to see if that changed your mind at all, since when I presented with new information, I sometimes change my mind. I wanted to see if that was the case here. So what you have in front of you is a resolution setting a public hearing on consideration of an ordinance to create a cemetery commission in accordance with Iowa code. The draft ordinance that you have in your packet is based on 3 other counties' draft ordinances. And so you can change up the number of commissioners, you can, there's certain things that we absolutely have to have, but you can change the number of commissioners, you can change the number of meetings, they can decide, I think, how many meetings they feel it's necessary to have in any given year. But the board is allowed to levy. The money will go into the general fund, but then you can only pay for the maintenance out of the general fund, so.
And the cemetery commissions are would be the only ones that could have oversight of pioneer cemeteries. According to what you had, I
Yes.
pulled up your email and I was,
According to the strict letter of the Iowa code, I believe that answer to be yes. But then, of course, the question is always, okay, so what happens if that's not the case? How do you enforce that? I see no enforcement mechanism, so then I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, who would take issue? What is the risk of liability to the county? And I think the only real risk is that somebody gets miffed that the county or that the cemeteries aren't being taken care of. So as long as somebody's taking care of them properly, then I don't think anybody's really going to be upset as to whether or not it's townships who apparently have been taking care of some of them versus a cemetery commission. Townships can levy for maintenance as well, so.
That's my question. How does this commission work with the trustees?
As well or as poorly as any other 2 bodies talking to each other about maintenance, I would suppose.
So my question is, why do we need this commission? If the trustees are in fact taking care of the cemeteries?
Well, I think that's a question, because if there's at least 2 cemeteries that I am aware of that are going to be at a point where people will not be taking care of them. So those people would like to know to whom they pass the torch. So that would be one thing. And then it's just whether I don't think that there's any real risk of liability to the county as long as somebody is taking care of things. The question would arise then, if somebody who is taking care of a cemetery and now there's no money left to take care of it, and then nothing is being done about that cemetery, then I could see the county. There's a possibility that somebody could sue the county for lack of maintaining a cemetery that should be maintained. under Iowa code by a cemetery commission, which can only be set up by the board of supervisors, which means you would be negligent in not doing that. But if the township trustees are taking over, maintenance of those cemeteries, then nobody really has a complaint.
I guess I feel a commission will be a redundant committee if we're gonna assign, if we can assign responsibilities to township trustees.
I want to be very clear again, under Iowa code, township trustees are to manage, are allowed to manage active
Active.
cemeteries. Inactive, AKA pioneer cemeteries, those with fewer than 25 burials in 50 years. Those are the cemeteries that we're talking about, and under Iowa code, it states pretty black and white that those are not to be maintained by townships, those are to be maintained by the board or a cemetery commission.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there can't be overlap with trustees and the cemetery commission. But yeah.
Yeah, Jeff,
Do you guys know how many pioneer cemeteries there are and where they're located?
yeah, give me a minute. Tammy, do you want to unmute yourself and give us some input?
Yeah, we have about, oh gosh, is it 8 cemeteries of the 39 cemeteries in the county, I believe, are what we would consider as pioneer cemeteries, because they have less than the recommended or the burials in the last 50 years.
Oh, that's many there are. So we could, in my mind, we could have the commission, which they are free to meet as often or as little as needed, but they would be able to oversee the pioneer cemeteries. Township trustees could still oversee the active cemeteries. If the cemeteries have their own board right now and are fine, they can still do their thing.
Yes, yeah.
This
that's not
just
considered.
Covers everybody should these boards, which will happen, age out. I mean, that's kind of what is gonna eventually happen, or the cemeteries become pioneer cemeteries. Tammy, do you have any other questions? Cause I know you are on many township trustee boards, clerk, and also probably one of our resident experts on cemeteries. Any questions come to mind from you?
I don't think so at this point. Yeah, I guess in the 7 townships that I am clerk for, at this point, we do give money to some of the pioneer cemeteries, so, and I think there are some cemeteries, I think at least one in one of my townships that is looking to come to the county or come to the township as to be
Yeah.
managed, so I guess we just I think as far as the townships are concerned, we would just need to have a very clear path of what we would need to follow and, so we change how we distribute money to these cemeteries, etc.
So, and yeah, and like you said, right now, it is just to provide a date for a hearing. I mean, we can decide at that time as to the hearing more, as to pass it or not to pass it. But, having heard from one of those cemetery committees that is actively looking to pass it on, I think it's something we do need to consider.
So in my district, there are 2 cemeteries that have been managed very well by the trustees in Blackhawk Township. There has not been a burial in either one of those cemeteries for at least 90 years. So if we establish this commission, what do I tell the trustees in my township who have been diligently taking care of these cemeteries? Do I tell them you are no longer needed?
I don't think I would say that. I would perhaps approach them because we will need, if you decide to go with a cemetery commission, we'll need commissioners. And if the township trust, if some of the township trustees are on the commission and they say, we've got it, we're good. I can't imagine that the other commissioners are like, oh, no, you don't, we're going to take care of your cemeteries for you. That, I could absolutely be wrong about it, but I just feel like there are other problems needing to be solved. I could certainly see a place for commissioners to say, because the levying authority is the same, it's 6 3/4 cents. Nobody, depending upon who is overseeing the cemetery, you don't get more tax money. So if the commissioners are like, good, these are 2 cemeteries being taken care of by their township trustees, and we've got one of their township trustees on our commission, have at it. Seems reasonable. Of course, I've been wrong about what's reasonable before, so.
So it doesn't necessarily make a difference on the actual oversight and job of upkeep. The taxing authority is where the commission comes in, and as far as the pioneer cemeteries.
I think the
Especially.
commission just comes in really as a gap filler for those places where maybe the township trustees aren't as active, or maybe the township trustees aren't looking at, they're seeing a cemetery and thinking, this was this particular church's cemetery, and I know so-and-so whose family has been part of that church for generations, and even though the church is gone, I know so-and-so is taking care of the cemetery, but maybe that person is not in a state to continue that, doesn't have family around who is interested in continuing that, and doesn't, and just wants to know that the cemetery where family and friends have been buried is going to be taken care of. And I don't think that that's going to be necessary in every township, but I know it's necessary in at least 2.
Well, those townships, have they levied? And yet aren't taking care of them, or one of the family members is doing it?
I do not, so my family member was a hypothetical,
Okay,
and I do not know what townships have levied for cemetery maintenance at all. That'd be a,
None of them have utilized the Pioneer Cemetery levy, but they have utilized the other levies that they have available.
well, and I'm not sure that the townships would necessarily
The township.
know to use, because it's the levy that's appropriate to whichever body is overseeing it. So if they're levying 6 3/4 cents per thousand, then they're doing that levy. So I don't know. I know that at least for the New Salem Lutheran Church Cemetery, that's gonna run out of money here before the end of summer. I know the gentleman that's been mowing it, but I don't think that the township has been involved in that at all. And so I will be turning that over, to somebody one way or another, whether it's to the township or under, I think it's, there's 331, I can turn over whatever money is left over to the auditor, and then the auditor has to, manage getting a mower out there. I think Alan has better things to do with his limited hours, besides text me at 10 o'clock at night, but, there we are, so.
So why can't the Board of Supervisors just designate or make a proclamation, a resolution, or whatever legal term you want to use, that any pioneer or whatever cemetery that's not being taken care of in a particular township now be under the jurisdiction and under the care of the local township trustees that they're located in. Because the trustees could levy for these funds. I'm struggling with why we need another commission.
And my only answer for that is because the law says so.
So if they're in one of these cemeteries where there hasn't been a burial for at least 90 years, if there is a burial, is it still considered a pioneer cemetery once there's been a burial in
I
that
think-
cemetery?
I think it would still qualify because it's a certain number of burials
Yeah,
in the
in
last
so many
50
years.
years. So as long as you don't become extraordinarily active. I guess my question would be, who would have the records and be able to transfer title of the plot?
That's one
And I
thing
think-
trustees struggle with.
And I think that
And
would be
one thing the commissioners.
where a
would do.
commission,
Oh.
so I think if you have a commit, you're probably, usually you only get people that are interested or at least would have some interest in it. And yeah, that would be the other thing is that the records and where those records are kept,
Mhm.
could be a more difficult item with township trustees, only because there's a little more changeover there.
I would really like to see, and maybe Tammy has, I'm sure Tammy has more knowledge about this than I do. But at least copies of those records being at the auditor's office and or the recorder's office. And it's entirely possible that there's some code that says that that's supposed to happen. Don't know. But I think that would be nice. And I know that Tammy's worked at getting that.
Yeah, she has,
Online
yeah,
average
she has a
or
bunch,
whatever.
yeah, she has a bunch of stuff online already, so,
So basically, the only reason we can't just streamline this, turn it over to the township trustee is because the state says, no, you can't.
I would say that it's because, yes, Iowa code states that the board of supervisors shall not. Yes,
Shall not what?
I gotta look at that code section again. It's in my email, 331, I think, 325, the
Yeah.
last sentence of that
State
code
may
section.
adopt an ordinance creating a cemetery commission to assume jurisdiction over pioneer red inactive cemeteries. Board may levy for that upkeep pursuant to Iowa Code Section 331, 424B at the same rate as the township trustees. However, the Board of Supervisors or Cemetery Commission appointed by the board shall control and maintain pioneer cemeteries as defined in section 331, 325. And then it says after her review of many more code sections. That pioneer cemeteries are basically inactive and may only be maintained by the Board of Supervisors or by a commission established by ordinance.
And it states that in that 331, 325. Board of Supervisors or commission. So if you don't want to do a commission, that's absolutely fine. Then the Board of Supervisors would need to get the list of pioneer cemeteries, delegate or appoint somebody to make the calls to get somebody out there to mow, and then levy for it and collect it for that 434B. So you don't need a commission,
But it's more for us to do.
but then, yes, it would be another thing for you guys to oversee.
trustees.
But
But we would
What
still
she's-
need to be the ones levying the township trustees wouldn't be able to use
She
their
just said they
levied
could.
money.
The Board of Supervisors.
As long as we
can
would tell
levy.
them, we would levy that money and then give it to them. I mean, or not,
Well,
it would
goes
come
into
out of the general fund.
Mhm.
We would be in charge of paying for that
Right.
for the pioneer cemeteries. They would still be able to
Mhm.
maintain the other active cemeteries until such time as no one wants to
Until
Or
such
they
time as they become
become pioneer.
pioneer.
So could you just have the trustees just be commissioners too? Every one of them? I mean, have them all. that way
I mean,
they all-
ideally,
That's an
yeah.
option.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
So,
So then you'd have equal representation. There's 15 townships,
mhm.
so it's a large commission, but I mean, then you have somebody in each township and presumably they would be heading up the maintenance of whatever cemeteries are in their township.
So instead of just turning it over to the townships, we can appoint all the township trustees to the commission?
I would say a trustee, a single trustee from each township.
Making this way more difficult than it needs to be.
Sounds like the state's making it more difficult than us.
Well, I think part of it is the age of most of the people we're seeing in the cemeteries is what's driving this. It's hard to find people that want to continue to take care. Just
I
as
would
within.
feel like the trustees and works are doing a good job.
Yeah.
And perhaps the other folks in the other townships are not quite up to par. I don't know if that's the right word,
I
but
don't know if I'd say that. Apparently, they're not aware of these two cemeteries.
They're
That
probably
need to
aren't
be
aware
taken
of their
care of.
responsibilities.
Yeah, they're not aware that
They,
it's not their responsibility at this point in time.
I think they are aware that it's not their responsibility. And so it's not, yeah.
Well, I guess what we have in front of us today is to set a date for public hearing. And, then we can go from there and then we would decide whether or not we create a commission.
Well,
So-
and if you set a public
You know.
hearing, then anybody else who has thoughts or opinions or feelings about it can come and be heard about that
Yeah.
and then
So-
obviously give you some more information from which to make a decision.
We need to have township trustees give us some input at the public hearing, I think would be very important.
I would note that the ordinance that I provided does provide for just 9 commissioners. So just because we have a public hearing on it, doesn't mean that you have to have that you have to jump from first to third reading at that hearing and pass the ordinance right then. You can have the reading, get input, change the number of commissioners, whatnot,
At that time.
and take your time doing that.
So. As far as a date, what would we be looking at? What day is 17?
The worst case, we got it in the paper on the 29th, 10 days after that. You got the 9th of June.
So the 9th of June,
Yeah.
we'll set the public hearing for the 9th of June. I guess in the meantime, we need to talk with some township trustees and other stakeholders as far as that.
And there should actually be a date on it.
Okay.
Motion.
So-
I'll make a motion to designate the 9th. The public hearing or public hearing, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, is there a second?
so good.
Second,
Okay, Alan, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Vic,
Yes.
Jeff,
yes,
LJ,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Heidi.
Yes.
What time was that?
Well,
9 o'clock.
yeah, 9, so the 9 o'clock meeting. Okay, things, the next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action concerning contracting for general assistance for fiscal year 26 and authorizing chairperson to offer said contract. As you know, we have, our general assistance has been provided with partnership with County Social Services. Todd Rickard has been providing that. And County Social Services will cease as of June 30th. So we have no one to provide general assistance. An option that we have would be to contract a set amount of hours per week with another agency. And to cover that, we would not have constant coverage, but it would be approximately 8 hours a week with what we have budgeted. It would be just contracting for that service. we would provide office space and materials, anything else needed, and we have in the budget the actual general assistance money, the money to provide that. And we do have an agency, I believe that would be interested, it would be Goodwill. They would be willing to provide a person. We would still need to work out hours, or, you know, that could be determined, but, I guess I would like to have the authorization to offer that contract to them and get their input. I think we have budgeted about $20,000, would be within that range. To have that come in. So I guess if there's any other questions or concerning that, otherwise. I appreciate that motion.
I'll move approval to create that, contract.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item is to set the date for fiscal year 25 budget amendment for June 2nd. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second and a sneeze. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Gotta wait. We have a fireworks permit request for Flashing Thunder fireworks. What's the date?
That's to kick off Felix Grundy Days.
Felix Grundy, okay. Is there a motion to approve that request?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. We have the reappointment of Stanley Neff to the Board of Adjustment for a 5-year term. Would anyone care to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And we have the motion to, would take a motion to reappoint Janice Hines to the Zoning Commission for a 5-year term.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, oh gosh, yeah. South Felix Grundy. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Did I do that one already?
Aye.
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 Sorry. All right, we've approved her maybe twice. We have a request for the courthouse grounds for Felix Grundy Days. And that is for, does it say what they're necessarily doing? Courthouse grounds and gazebo for setup and events and usage on Saturday. So, would anyone care to make that motion?
So
I'll make the motion.
Okay. You want to be second? Is that okay? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Did, a couple years ago, we have a little bit of problems with alcohol being there.
I think that's been
That's been
addressed.
taken care
I
of.
think so. I think so.
On that thing, I mean, what does it say as far as like what's gonna be on
But they talked about inflatables. They might have a new person and I told her that needs to get with you. Just so it's possible.
like in the past, probably 2 years or probably last 2 years, they've always had the inflatables on the street. Not on the ground.
It just says we have plans for traditional inflatables this year, in addition a vintage market, bandstand, entertainment, and other kid-friendly activities.
Is it Katie? Is that who it is?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Talk to her.
so. It doesn't specifically say what would be where. Okay, perfect. Are there any updates on boards or committees? Ms. Marie. Anybody have anything?
Last Thursday, Intercog exec met at 11:30. We went through the Intercog and the RTC financials. Both are in good shape. We reviewed 2 staff evaluations, which were salary increases were approved. They are interviewing for a transportation planner to replace, Kyle, who left about a month ago now. They hope to have that wrapped up this week, I believe. We approved a new phone system for the Intercog offices. And approved some additions to the Intercog handbook. Which I don't think you people would be all that interested in. Then at 1 o'clock, Jeff and I attended RTA meeting. What did we do there? Yeah,
We reviewed the strategic plan
that's what we did.
and had project updates.
We did review the plan. We didn't really approve or disapprove it. We just reviewed it. And then the engineers gave all their latest project updates. And that was about it.
I had a meeting of the Iowa Northland Regional Housing Advisory Board, just to go over, we had the, financial person there in person, so we were able to go over some of the financials with that. And see what our options are going forward. Otherwise, we're still working on getting some policies drafted and completed. It was just a really informative meeting for the board as far as the financial end of things. On Thursday, I had a Together for Families meeting. It was joint with Floyd Mitchell Chickasaw. We will be joining with them. Just going over the budget. The funding has come through, and so now we know what our totals are. We had some projections, some spend downs. Everything is pretty much within action. We will fully fund most of the requests for this year. We are able to. We did the coordinator evaluation. We went over that and just went through some of the county planning groups. But most of it was going over the budget and making sure that was in line. So that was a good meeting. Is there anything else to come before the board this morning? Butch, you got anything for us this morning?
Not really, had a couple of air commissioners last week and started tearing out the ones upstairs, so we can start.
I was at the Board of Health last week.
Okay. Sorry, Jeff, yep.
I'm a little behind time, I think. But anyway, I was at the Board of Health and basically Carrie and Erica discussed their department matters more than anything, but it was a good meeting. And at the end of it, they went to visit the ambulance crew down at the ambulance in Grundy here, and it was a good meeting. So yeah, that was my Board of Health meeting.
Okay. Good. Is there anything else to come before the board this morning? Yes, I would take a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a second? Anyone? At all? I will second it. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
See you later.
See you, Jeff.